Good morning. I'm your host, Genesis Davis, and this is Amazing News at 8. Today, we will be going back in time to the Second World War and examining how propaganda was spread and its effects on its intended audience. To start, propaganda is information, ideas, opinions, or images that often only give one side of an argument that are broadcast, published, or spread with the intention of influencing people's opinions. In both the Axis and Allied powers cases, propaganda was used on all sides with the main goals of gaining public support, boosting morale, recruiting soldiers, and demonizing the enemy. Both sides needed to get their entire nation on board with the war, and through the use of posters, films, radio, newsreels, and more, citizens were convinced that their cause was just. And now that we know what propaganda is, we will be traveling over to the States to visit what U.S. propaganda was like during World War II. Over in America, the Office of War Information, or WWII, created by President Roosevelt in 1942, was authorized to use the press, radio, and motion pictures to help U.S. citizens develop an informed understanding about what was happening regarding the war at the time. Throughout 1942 to 1945, the OWI created tons of propaganda, mainly using posters as they were inexpensive and accessible to every American at the time. A series of famous OWI posters created by Norman Rockwell titled Four Freedoms helped sell war bonds by portraying each of Roosevelt's four freedoms as scenes of everyday American life, helping soldiers and families fight for what they love. Inside factories, posters condemned workers for being late, taking breaks, and even going out to drink after work. They pushed the notion that you aren't just a factory worker, but you're Uncle Sam's proactive soldier on the industrial front line. Film was also popular in helping spread propaganda at the time, with a series of 7 documentary films titled Why We Fight being commissioned by the U.S., even though most of the footage was taken from Axis propaganda films. In Disney, of course popular for its animation, was also making short films, one of the most popular being a Donald Duck short. And now here we have a video clip from a Disney studio worker at the time, talking about what it was like to work there during the war.
It was a lot of work at the studio during time of war. We were put on the spot immediately after Pearl Harbor. Production picked up at the blink of an eye. We were producing 3 to 4 short films per week. The illustration department was pushing artists to make character patches for 1,300 troops in the Army unit. Myself, I was in the animation department. We did the Donald Duck short, The Leader's Face. It was extremely popular. It translated in multiple languages. It even won an Academy Award. It sold so many copies in America, it generated more work in the future.
For a long time, Nazi propaganda had been spread throughout Germany, with the Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda being created in 1933, a while before World War II even began. The ministry's aim was to successfully communicate the Nazi message through art, music, theater, films, books, educational materials, and the press. During World War II, the ministry used propaganda to create a tolerance of violence against Jews and encourage passivity towards mass murder. Then, after invading the Soviet Union, Nazi propaganda stressed to all its citizens that an apocalypse would happen if the Soviets won the war. Films were mainly used to spread propaganda due to their extreme popularity at the time. One film, titled The Eternal Jew, portrayed Jews as materialistic parasites who were consumed by money. Children were targeted as well, with card games of Hitler and books promoting anti-Semitic imagery. Younger Germans were drawn towards Nazism, which portrayed itself as dynamic, resilient, and forward-looking. Membership in youth groups became mandatory for all boys and girls in Germany, and by 1939, over 700,000 adolescents held membership positions in Nazi youth organizations. Nazi ideals were also spread in schools, with textbooks teaching children to love Hitler and be obedient to their state. The entire time, Hitler was using his own face on posters, portraying himself as the embodiment of Germany. Public allegiance was to be paid to him, with citizens greeting each other using the Nazi salute. His own autobiography was also a form of propaganda as well, used to enrage Germans about their losses in World War I, pushing them to fight for their country, with special editions being published and sold to the public. Overall, World War II propaganda affected citizens around the entire nation and influenced many people's opinions throughout the time of war. And that's all for Amazing News. Goodbye.